Today, I have the distinction of introducing to you Dr. Don Wetmore, who's authored a book called The Productivity Handbook, which reveals how true productivity doesn't mean doing things faster. It means being more effective, and it requires a better way of prioritizing your time, communicating with others, and absorbing information. Dr. Wetmore is the founder of the Personal Productivity Institute, which is an organization that teaches productivity tools and techniques to participants at major corporations, including General Electric, JP Morgan Chase, Duracell, and so on. So Dr. Wetmore, I'm so pleased to have you here. Thank you, sir, for being here.
I'm very pleased to be with you.
Thank you. How would you like to begin? Would you like to tell us how you got your career started and where it all led?
Yeah, let me go back to my days in high school, and it's not a terribly long story, but it's relevant to why I'm sitting here in front of you today and what the work that I've been doing now for several years. And I was not a very good student in high school, and I really wasn't motivated. And I was doing very well up until I got into high school and just sort of lost my direction. And I was sort of like the class clown, and we had study hall on Friday afternoons, and one of our proctors was Miss Taylor, and she was our English teacher. And I think everybody out there had Miss Taylor at one time or another. I had her when she was like 100 years old. and she and I'd be in study hall, I'd be yakking away and just being a pill. And she would come over and she'd be all frustrated, and she's screaming and, raising her hand at me and be quiet. And she'd take her away and she'd come back again. So this one Friday, I was a pill, I guess. She came back so many times, and finally she just explodes on me. There's like 200 kids in study hall. And she screams at me and she says, "Mr. Wetmore, I told you 8 times not to talk, and all you do is talk, 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 talk. What's the matter with you? Are you deaf or are you stupid?"
Wow.
Well, I'm thinking about that, and I'm deaf or stupid.
I wish I was deaf.
Mom always told me not to be stupid. So, in a voice loud enough for the entire assembly, this study hall, I looked up at her and I said, "Huh?" And it got a pretty good laugh and everything. But she didn't think it was very funny. But anyway, she pulled me, and here's just what the point of the story is. Is there a point? Yes, there is. She pulled me aside and she said, "You want to know something?" She says, "You're never going to amount to anything." Now, she didn't say, "Look, if you're on the path you're at, you're going to have to." No, she said, and what am I, 12, 13 years old and everything? So when I look back of why the wind kind of came out of my academic pursuits and all that, that was one of them. And it was, yeah, so I'm not going to amount to anything. And I don't mean that by an excuse. I wasn't playing victim or anything, but I took that to heart. I mean, if they didn't believe it. So I just kind of, did the minimum. When I got my high school diploma, it was one of the biggest frauds perpetrated in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, and I was a high school graduate. So then it came time to go to college, and I had no ambition to go to college whatsoever, none, zero. But my parents were pushing me, so I applied to all the schools in the Boston area where I grew up, and I got the answers back, and they ranged anywhere from no,
No way,
no way, and no, love the dean. And the only place I was able to get into was a new community college that had just opened up, and it was just open enrollment, and it was high school all over again. I'm taking classes I hated, and I was failing everything. And towards the end of that year, somebody suggested to me, "Why don't you create a new path? Why don't you consider transferring into a real college as an upperclassman?" Which is still true today. If you don't make it the first, go around in the freshman class, that they have the need for the students. So anyway, so I applied to Bentley College in Boston and real college, dormitory college, and to this day I don't know why, but they took me, okay.
Yay.
And for the first time in my academic career, I was taking some classes that I really wanted to take. Up until then, I was always taking stuff that I had to take. And I don't know about you, but when I have to do anything, I find all kinds of reasons not to do it.
Mm-hmm.
When I have to cut the lawn, when I have to make that phone call, I can find a 1,000 reasons not to do it. and blame it on I don't have the time to do it. But when I want to do something, I can move mountains. I think we all can.
Yes.
And so with that, that first year at Bentley, I had no credits to transfer, so I was starting all over again. And I was on the dean's list. I mean, it was just unheard of.
Oh,
And
great.
now I'm getting in, really into this, and I got 3 more years in my 5-year plan. So I went to the dean and asked for permission to accelerate so I could graduate with my original date. And he agreed, and he put me on academic probation, but I was allowed to take 6 and 7. There's one semester I took 8 classes. And
Wow.
I finished up the 3 years in 2 years with a 3-point-something average, and actually graduated as the outstanding senior in my class. I learned 3 things from this story. Number one, how much we in our productivity is affected by what other people say to us, or what they fail to say, what we think that they said. Okay. Number 2, with the advice of, well, let's make a small change here. Why don't you consider this? I learned the lesson that huge increases in our productivity don't require huge increases of time, effort, and energy. Small little changes of direction makes all the difference in the world. Now I'm here from the East Coast, so if a ship is going out of New York Harbor, going due east to England, we'll say Europe, 90 degrees, and the captain starts early off and just varies the course maybe a half a degree one way or the other, you wind up several hundreds of miles away.
Yes.
So a small little change, somebody suggested a small thing to me, and that was a positive thing, and how well I was influenced. And then the third lesson was the idea of things that, the difference between things that I have to do and things that I want to. And that doesn't mean we get away from doing the things we don't want to do, but we can reframe that in our mind. Things that are unpleasant, turn them into a game, turn it into a, something that is with a reward or something like that. And those 3 things formed my basic understanding of really what time management was all about. And time management for most people is, have a to-do list, don't procrastinate, plan your day. Those things are still around, but it's really much more than that. So then fast forward, I decided I didn't want to go into the business world of the accounting that my degree was there. I was grateful for the degree. I was interested in going to law, so I went to law school. And I thought, gee, maybe get an MBA. That would be kind of nice. So I was doing law school full-time in the day, and I was working full-time on my MBA, doing 2 graduate programs.
Gee.
And so I had a lot of tuition bills, so I had to have some businesses on the side to support me. And so I had a little accounting practice. I was sort of like H&R Wetmore doing tax returns. And I also had a real estate office, and I had 15 agents working for me, selling houses on the weekends. And I had to have 2 businesses because I had 2 tuition bills because I was going to 2 graduate programs, and we had to hire a lot of people. So I had an employment agency, and I was in 2 locations, and we had to finance properties. So I had a real estate mortgage company and a real estate franchising company. And I also had a mail order business.
Now, wait a minute. Is this all in your 20s?
This is all in my 20s while I'm going to graduate school, 2 graduate schools. And I was also taking private pilot's lessons in my spare time because I think everybody had hobbies, don't you? And
Wow.
my wife and I were married, and at the beginning of all of this, and we started having kids, and I wasn't working weekends doing all of that.
No.
And and that's a true story, and there's no spin to that. There's no exaggeration. And I share the story not because I'm gifted or, I often say I am not a smart man, but I do know what productivity is all about.
Wow, you do a good, what's that actor? Jimmy Stewart, right?
Well, I don't mean Jimmy Stewart. I can do my Jimmy Stewart impression. I used to do impression stand-up in college.
Seriously?
Yeah, because I wasn't going to go anywhere, so I had to something to fall back
Oh my
on, I
gosh.
guess.
Can you do one really fast?
Huh?
Can you do somebody really quick?
Well, you asked about Jimmy Stewart, and I want you to meet my friend here on the call is Harvey. He was 6 foot white rabbit. You say hello. He says he doesn't care for you. I'm sorry.
Wow. Wow, I guess you can always fall back on that if you decide you want one more thing to do, right?
Well, as Mitch McConnell said, the senator from Kentucky, I spoke to the president the other day about productivity, and I honestly fell asleep halfway through my conversation. So I don't know that I made a difference by that. That's what I'm saying about this.
Oh my gosh, you're killing me. Oh my gosh, I've got tears in my eyes. That's outstanding. Thank you.
But that whole scenario stuff that I was doing all this stuff all at the same time, at the same time. And yes, I was planning and I would take the train into Boston rather than drive the car, and that way I could study, and little things like that, because it's always the little things. But it taught me the lesson. There's very little correlation between the quantity of time that we put in over here and what output is over here. In all of life's dimension, I'm not saying there's no correlation. We do have to put in time, of course. And you look at anything. I mean, earnings levels, for example. Earnings levels in this world range anywhere from zero to trillions, billions of dollars. Okay, and Bill Gates and Oprah Winfrey and so forth. And I don't know these folks. I just what I read in the media, and they seem to be very talented people. But the notion that they're billions times smarter than the average bear, I don't think so.
Yeah.
I know why they get billions more, because they have billions times more time. Well, not really.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but a lot of it's, it's dumb luck and right place, right time. Yeah, I know that. That happens from time to time. You buy a lottery ticket, you might win. But by and large, the reason why they're having great success, the reason why their results are different, and you could look at two salespeople, real estate salespeople, one is making this level, one is making this level, same market, same. Why does this person do twice as much than the other person? They don't work twice as hard, twice as fast. They just use their time differently. And so what I found was another thing. This is the foundation of getting into this whole thing of coaching. This is kind of a long way to that original thought. What I learned was, because I didn't know how to do all this stuff and how to run these businesses and how to manage my time. And it's actually going to be the topic now of a new book that I'm writing. It's a fun book, and it's going to be called "You Got to Talk to the Muffin Man." And it's a simple kind of a thing. If you want to make blueberry muffins, you can kind of figure it out by yourself and burn a bunch of stuff and get discouraged and say, "Poor me, I don't know how to do it." But you go to somebody who's already made the muffins, the blueberry muffins, and you get the recipe and you follow the recipe. And it's a technique that I share with clients, a productivity technique that works 100% of the time. And let's say, for example, you want to have a successful real estate career. Okay, then you find somebody who's got a very successful real estate career, and I teach people to approach that perfect stranger. Yeah, perfect stranger. They don't know. You pick up the phone and call them. Okay, maybe show up at their workplace and say, "I just have a question I'd like to ask you." Okay. And the first thing I teach them to say is acknowledge their success. So the conversation might go something, "Wow, I hear you're a very, very successful person in the real estate market here." And the second question you need to ask is, how do you do it? How do you do that? And the technique works almost 100%. Very rare that it doesn't, for two reasons. The number one topic of that people have about that they want to talk about is themselves. They love to talk about themselves. We all do. And number two is, do we love to talk about our failures or our successes? It's about our successes. And they'll give you some information, maybe not the whole recipe, but if you talk to enough people around the way, okay, you start to find what the answers are. So fast forward, I'm done with law school. I went to work with an attorney and made the mistakes on his files, and then I decided to go out on my own. And taking the experiences that I had of, talk to the muffin man, and there's no real correlation between the quantity of time and the output over here. I wanted to set up a practice. Back then, the gold standard was a $100,000 practice. If you could achieve that, that was really great success. So I said, yeah, check that box. That's my goal. But then when I talked to my boss that I'd worked for about a year and a half, he and many of the older attorneys that I spoke with pretty much all said the same thing. It's going to take 7 to 10 years to do it, son. That's put up with the elderly woman comes in, she wants a will, you treat her nice, she tells her nephew and all that. And I'm kind of like a racehorse. I mean, I'm kind of impatient. I didn't want to wait that long, okay?
Right.
And so I was talking kind of the wrong muffin men and women. They weren't making blueberry muffins. They were making corn muffins. A corn muffin is building a practice in 10 years. I want to talk to somebody who made a blueberry muffin who did it in 5 years, 4 years, something like that. So I spoke to 2 and 3 and 4 people, and I got some insights. Hey, you had a great success in your setting of your practice. How did you do that? And we get into a nice conversation. I pick up little techniques here and there. So the other part of the situation was I didn't want to work 70 hours a week to achieve the goal, because my boss did me working 70 hours, and most attorneys will work in 70 hours. I wanted to do it in 35 hours. I just arbitrarily kind of picked it, cut it in half. I could have said 30, I could have said 40. In 1 year, I built up a $100,000 practice, and doing it 35 hours a week.
Beautiful.
And doing it accurately and so forth. Now, I didn't do it all, file every motion and everything that involved hiring people as time went by, and doing it all well. And then fast forward, because when I left my office with my employer, I had 10 files. So by the time I got to 100,000, I had over 100 files, and that represented a 1,000% increase in my productivity. And
They must have been absolutely astounded.
Huh?
Your boss must have been astounded.
Well, yeah, he wasn't talking to me too much after I left anyway. But fast forward 10 years out, I increased the practice up to 400,000. I talked to some other muffin men and women.
Oh my gosh.
And I was still only putting in 35 hours a week.
That is
I went from 100 files to 4,000 files. That's a 4,000% increase in my productivity.
wow.
Not by working harder, but just by working smarter. And I delegated, of course, I planned, I did all these things that we know about, tools of time management. So then fast forward, I'm only, practicing law 35, and I've got some businesses on the side, and I love teaching. And at the time I started my law practice, I was hired as a faculty member at Mercy College outside of New York City, teaching business law full-time. It was a full-time engagement, but it was only 2 days a week because they wanted 4 real-life practitioners in the classroom. And so I would go in Tuesday, Thursday, Monday, Wednesday, that kind of thing. Had a full class load, full-time benefits and so on. And it was through Mercy College that got me into my day job now, and doing these seminars and training and writing books and all that. And it was about 30 years ago or so, maybe longer. My boss came to me, my department chair, and asked me to put together a program on time management for our students. These are kids that are getting out degrees in business and management. Nobody's ever taught them how to manage their time. So I said, you bet, I'd be happy to do that. And I got all the materials together, and it never ran. They didn't have a budget for it. We all know how that works, okay?
Yes.
So I said, I'm just going to do it. I just, if you do the things you love the most, here's another productivity tip. Do the things you hate the most, you're not going to be as productive. You're going to be miserable. Do the things you love the most. Make it that it's not a job anymore. It's a joy of life. It's your passion. The money will come, and the satisfaction will come, and the productivity will be there.
Right.
And so I just started teaching out on my own, and friends, relatives, clients, anybody that owed me a favor had to come and listen to me for like a half a day. And then somewhere along the line, somebody said, why don't you charge money for it? And I said, there's another good idea. I think I'm going to try. They gave us the money back, so I figured I was on the right path. So now I'm in the time management business. And I had just a basic 2-3 day class. And we just kind of grew from that. And then some people invited me to do on-site work. So I started traveling a lot, and then started doing the coaching and the writing. And as I got into it, though, it was more than just a to-do list. And, the 3-day program that we did had the basics and goal setting and all of that. But as time went by, I started to look at all the different dimensions that affect, support, or diminish our productivity. So my curriculum today, end to end, is 38 full training days. I can almost give a doctorate degree in personal productivity, I suppose. And I've never had a client ask me to do the whole thing, as you know. And when I tell that to people, they say, "My goodness, what takes 38 days to talk about time management or personal? And what takes 38 minutes?"
Is that 8 hours a day, 38 days, or is that?
Yeah, full training days, yeah, end to end.
Oh,
I have
wow.
programs on dealing with difficult people, dealing on all the planning processes and all that, communication skills, management skills, leadership skills, dealing with difficult people, dealing with change, stress management. I have a wonderful one-day program on speed reading that I teach. At the end of the day, it's a one-day program where the students actually double their reading speed. So if you're spending 2 hours a day reading, then you can do it in half the time. So you save an hour a day, kind of a thing.
Right. Wow.
So
It's really more than, I mean, it's like you said, it's personal productivity across the board and in so many different ways.
that's right.
Yeah. Because nobody teaches you how to deal with difficult people. I've never heard of that before.
Yeah, and it's okay. I mean, and we're doing okay. We're past go collecting $200, and our culture is great. Our economy, freedom we have, and all of that. I mean, I don't mean to criticize that at all, but let me just share a couple of statistics. 80% of the people who go to work on Monday morning, they don't want to be there.
Oh, I believe that.
That's according to the United States Labor Department. And when I tell that, sometimes some people are surprised the number's so low.
Oh, that's funny.
And by Friday, traditional payday, it's still about 60%. And when I heard that originally, I'm thinking, my God, in this, the country, the greatest opportunity. I mean, I know some jobs are worthy of that contempt, but 80%. And I began to explore that. And one of the foundational principles that I build all of this around is what I've labeled as the 7 vital areas of life. And it all relates down to work-life balance. And they include things like our health, our family, and our financial dimensions, but also our intellectual, social, professional, and spiritual areas. And we don't treat each of those equally, or we don't spend time in each one of those every single day. But over the long term, if we're spending a sufficient quantity and quality of time in those areas, then our lives are going to be stable. It's like a 7-legged table. If one leg is out of whack, it upsets the entire table. So for example, if you're another statistic, 75% of the population complains on a regular basis they're flat out tired. I mean, you can test this any time of the day or night. Go to the mall, go up to 10 perfect strangers and ask, are you rested? Did you get a good night's sleep? Are you on top of your game? And 3 out of 4 people will tell you, oh man, I'm just so tired. And there's a bunch of reasons for it, but here's the point. If you're flat out tired today, does that interfere with your ability to be the good family person you want to be? Well, yeah. Right. Does that interfere with your ability to focus in on your professional responsibilities? Yeah, I mean, just kind of phone it in for the day kind of a thing. Well, what if things aren't going real well in your family life? That's going to hurt your mental health. And what if things aren't going well in your financial life? It's going to hurt your social life. And so life is more than just making a living, okay? So when I am engaged by clients who say, my folks, they're worth the 80%, they don't want to be there, and recognizing they're not as productive, certainly they are productive. And that's something, a point that I make time and again. Everybody that I work with, and everybody with very few exceptions that I come across, they're productive. Everybody's productive. That's not the issue. The issue is how much more productive can we be? Not by spending more time, but working smarter rather than harder. So the first thing I do with that group, the 80%ers, is we go through this 7 vital area thing, because that's probably what's missing. It's you're doing a paycheck. That's all. Time for a paycheck. And you don't see where it's taking you. And if you can see it in a greater context, that your job is not just, it's half your waking hours. I mean,
Absolutely.
And, there's a social opportunity in there. There's career-wise and professional. And we'll never be 100% successful. But if I can cut that 80% down in half, and we're pretty successful, so that uh, instead of 80%, 40% are not satisfied being at work on Monday, but 60% are really enthusiastic. What a huge increase in productivity that does without any additional staff and so on.
Yeah, you're singing to the choir, because that's my whole premise too, is that when you really take the time to explore what you want to do in your career, all of a sudden you want to go to work on Monday morning, as opposed to hating that it's Monday morning. And but you just can't make that happen if you just take any job that first comes your way.
Yeah, and initially you do that because you got to pay pay the rent, you got to pay the student loan and everything. That's okay, and you may not be certain as to the direction you want to go in. So part of my work is helping my clients and students and others, and through the rallies that I do, and written 8 books so far. I'm going to keep going with it. I got the Muffin book coming up, so
Oh,
that's pretty
seriously,
exciting.
you've written 8 books?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So if somebody doesn't want to do 38 days of training with you, which books do you recommend for them to delve into?
Yeah, I've got 4 of them on there. 2 that I would recommend. One is called Organizing Your Life. And
Okay.
it's kind of a fun book. It was my first published book, and it's a lot of pictures and illustrations like that. But it goes over a lot of the basic stuff and gets into some of that work-life balance stuff. And then I wrote a more serious book. It was published by Random House called The Productivity Handbook. And it's really delves into a lot of this stuff. So for starters, I'd recommend the organizing your life.
Excellent. Excellent.
But what both books are aimed to do, though, is helping people to determine, really where they're going. I sometimes use the metaphor of Alice in Wonderland, the story of Alice. And, she's down in that rabbit hole and she comes to a crossroads and she doesn't know to go left or right. She doesn't have a map. She's never been there before. And she's kind of frustrated. But up in the tree over here is a big smiling Cheshire cat. And she turns to the cat for some direction. Which way do I go? Do I go left? Do I go right? And the cat that's a very, very important question. What's your destination? Where do you want to go? Something of that nature. And Alice, if you recall, says, I don't know. And the cat says, then take either road.
Right.
What
Absolutely.
difference does it make what road you're on? If you don't know where you're going, you never know when you get there.
Absolutely.
I found, and this was through my law practice, I did a lot of trusts and wills and estates and with people in the later stages of life, their senior years. And maybe it was the population I was dealing with. But this had a huge impact on my thinking as I'm teaching in this personal productivity stuff. But there was a huge numbers of folks who were filled with a lot of regret. Couldas and shouldas and wouldas. I could have spent more time with my kids. I should have invested. If I only would have started that business, and on and on and on. And I'm as optimistic as anybody else, but at that stage in life, I mean, people are not starting long novels. And I'm thinking, my goodness, I don't want to end up at the end of my life and tell that story. And I know I have no perfection in my life, for sure. But if I can minimize some of those disappointments, I don't want to end up there. And from a spiritual standpoint, we all have different views of where this goes, beyond life and all of that sort of thing. And I'm not so sure where it all ends up. So I want to max this thing out that I get going.
Yeah, just in case this is it, right?
Just to make sure but I want to get to the end of life and say this was a mistake, and I know I'll have some. Excuse me. So the exercise that I share, and this is great for young people especially, and I taught it to my students at the college and in the graduate program as well, especially starting a new career. I want you to think about writing the book of life backwards. And imagine that we were all born with a book under our arms that's got 7 chapters in it for each one of those 7 vital areas that I referred to. But the pages are all blank. And every day we live our lives, we're putting a page in each one of those areas, those chapters. We're literally writing the story of our lives as we sit here now.
Yes.
The question to ask is, on the last day of your life, what do you want to be able to say about your health life? And not where do you think life will take you, or what will I qualify for? No. If the genie is here and pops out of the bottle and waves the magic, and you can have anything, forget how it's going to happen. Don't worry about that now. What's the story you want to be able to say about on the last day of your life? Do I put down like how long I'm going to live? Yeah, I think that's a good one. Start off there. And what other things? I don't know. And I give thoughts to kind of stimulate. So all kinds of things come out of that. Yeah, I want to be able to say I ran the marathon, 26 miles, you know, and I live to be 100 and on and on and on. Now let's go to the family situation on the last day of your life. And why the last day of your life? That's the only day you can't change the book.
True.
Time heals all wounds, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
So whatever's broken our lives, I mean, with time, we've got some shot at changing it, affecting some change. But the last day, it's over, you know?
Yep.
The story's been told.
A brilliant exercise.
So on the last day of life, what do you want to say about your family life?
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, is it the super duper family vacation? You know, all kinds of different things. On the last day of your life, what do you want to say about your financial life?
Uh-huh.
Specifics. How much did you make? And, you know, what did you buy? What did you do with that money? What was the whole purpose of it? And so on.
Right.
And when I was taught how to do this, I took off Friday, Friday from work. I said, this is really exciting. I wrote a book about this whole thing, and it was provided by Charles Dobbs, I'm sorry. This was kind of regarded some years ago as the dean of modern thinking of time management. I thought, geez, that's a great concept. I took off Friday. I worked until 11 o'clock Friday night on the computer in the bedroom. I did Saturday, Sunday, I took off Monday. I did it 4 days. It was the most frightening, scary, exhilarating experience I mean, the possibility. I'm thinking, wow, I could do this and this and this and this. And once you have clarity on where you're taking this, I call it me incorporated, okay? Then you start to break that down to figure out what are the things I got to do this year, this month, this week, and literally this day in order to get there, because the bragging rights to a nice story at the end of life, it doesn't come to us based on what we do the last 3 days of our lives. It's what we're doing every single day of our lives. I like to use the example of President Clinton in this regard, not getting into politics or anything, but the notion was that the issue was Clinton decided to become president of the United States when he was 16 years old. He was part of a youth group, Boys Nation or something like that. And the parents made arrangements to bring the kids up to Washington, D.C. on a field trip. And they made arrangements to get into the White House and get the tour and to meet then President Kennedy. And there's a very famous photograph of young Bill Clinton shaking hands with then President Kennedy in the Rose Garden. And he says, that's the moment. He says, that's when I decided I wanted to be the president. I think it's really going to be fun here. I really do. I think I'd like to do that. Yes, really. I want to be president. That's really.
Oh my
In fact,
God.
at the Kennedy Library in Boston, when I went through years ago, the last display was a video of then President Clinton in the Rose Garden with that picture with President Kennedy on the credenza, and he pointed to that and he said, "That's the moment when I did it." So. Clinton's 16, he comes back to Hope, Arkansas, and this is a little bit of literacy license here. I'm going to kind of imagine some facts here, but anyway, he comes back Sunday night, and where does he go? Well, he goes where all the 16-year-olds go. They go to the pool hall, right? And so his buddies are all there, and they're saying, "Clinton, where you been for the last few days? We haven't seen you." So I went to Washington, D.C. Oh, that's pretty good. Yeah, we toured the White House. Whoa. Yeah, as a matter of fact, I met President Kennedy. I shook hands. You met President? Guys, did you hear that? Wow, this is fantastic. Wow, that's terrific. And then young Clinton tells his friends assembled, you know, someday I'm going to be the president of the United States. You kidding me, Clinton? You, what the heck do you know? But nobody from Arkansas is a, do you think he had some Miss Taylors hanging around him that night? And it's here's what it comes down to. So many people that I've worked with over the years, they look at those 7 vital areas and they say, I am where I am in any one of those areas because of my circumstances. You don't understand the parents I had or didn't have, or the education I had or didn't have. With that boss, I mean, you guys on the West Coast, yeah, we've got a good market here, but in the East Coast, if I only had and a lot of folks feel strongly that they are where they are because of their circumstances. And I've learned, if nothing else, over the years, they've got that all backwards. Our circumstances don't make us. Yep. Our circumstances reveal us.
Right.
Because it all comes down to this simple fact. Life is a series of choices. Mm-hmm. Choices that we make or fail to make or allow others to make for us. That's really what it comes down to.
Right.
But how do you know what choices to make in life if you don't know where you're going in the first place?
Mhm.
And so that's the concept of that book of life, because once you've got clarity on where you're taking this and you've got a vision, and it's not chiseled in granite, it'll change as time and priorities change and all that. It'll be kind of a guiding force going forward. You start to use your time, small amounts of time, because it doesn't take huge amounts of time. Start talking to more and more muffin men and women how to do certain things, and you start to become that. As James Allen wrote in his book, "As a man thinketh, so he becomes." Earl Nightingale, the uh, very, very famous public speaker back in the 50s and 60s, talked about you do become what you think about.
Absolutely.
It's so true. That self-talk that we do to ourselves, and it creates that law of attraction. I often counsel people that, if they're, maybe it's a marketing issue, and I'm dealing with a financial planner and he can't get any clients. And so how many clients you need? And well, he needs 10 clients, and it's a mountain too high and that he can't climb. And we get into a discussion. I said, how do you make those clients? He said, what do you mean? I said, what do you go into a kitchen and what do you start with? You build in sugar or fingernails? He says, you're being ridiculous. I said, no, I'm not. Where do the clients come from? I said, well, they're out there. Oh, I said, well, you don't have to invent them. So the clients are already there. And are there 10 people out there who need what you have? And yeah, I suppose they are. Then why don't you go out and just talk to them? But I don't know where they are. Then why don't you focus on how to find out where they are? Well, I don't know what to say to them. Why don't you focus on them, what you're going to say to them? Well, how do I know what to say? Talk to a muffin man who's already done it.
Yep.
That's an excellent example of what coaching is about. I mean, you say, my goodness, you're stating the obvious. Of course it is. It's just common sense. Yeah, it is common sense.
I think the
Sometimes
most accomplished people always have a coach or a mentor or somebody working with them. They're never going it alone.
They do, and I've learned that lesson myself. And there's nothing that I ever done, and started my law practice, and I started like 25 different businesses and my coaching business and so forth without having my mentor, my coaches, with one exception. And that's when back at Mercy College, and my boss asked me to put together the program, and it didn't run, so I started teaching it on my own. Didn't charge any money for it. I just loved doing it. Somebody said, charge money. I said, okay, now I've got a business. And I didn't talk to anybody about it because I've got an MBA with a concentration in marketing. I'm a marketing genius. And so I decided to expand my business. And in the first 6 years of my business as a speaker and a coach, a productivity coach, I trained only 600 people. It sounds like a lot, but groups of 25 here, it wasn't a whole lot of people. Mm-hmm. And I was $150,000 in debt.
Oh gosh.
True story. And, or I say in debt that the business was $150,000. I mean, I spent $40,000 on a radio campaign that genius here thought was really going to be super, and I got nothing from it. And a ton of money on print advertising and a whole bunch of stuff. And we were setting up seminars. I had an assistant with me, my marketing fellow, and he'd work all month to get enough people for the class, and then 2 people would drop out. We'd have to cancel it. And I'm just ready to fold up the tent. I mean, I had other things going on financially, but there was no way out of this, And my assistant just kind of kicked me. He said, "Come on, you're Mr. Positive, and now you want to practice what you preach and everything." All right. And it wasn't 2 days later, I got a flyer that came across my desk from the New England chapter of the National Speakers Association, which is our professional organization for speakers and coaches and the like. And they were having a speaker school up in Springfield or something like that, a weekend event. And I'm thinking, my God, why wasn't I thinking of this in the first place? I've always belonged to my professional association as an attorney, as a realtor, as a business law professor. There's a business professional association for business law professors. That's where the muffin men and women are. And I'm thinking, bing. And so I went to this, and I really believe when the student's ready, the teacher will appear, and the law of attraction getting there, And I went and I started talking to people. And it was hey, you got a great successful business. How do you get students? They may not be, doing time management training. They were maybe doing sales training or something like that, but it's the same kind of an issue. And they shared, and they had bought them a cup of coffee and bought a drink or a dinner or whatever. And I talked to several people, but I had 3 people tell me the same thing, and it turned my business around. They asked me in different ways, but they said, when somebody comes to your seminar, your 1 or 2 day seminar, what do you offer for them afterwards? And I said, I don't offer them anything. And they, well, why don't you? And I said, it's tough enough to get in their pocket once to come to this thing, and then to sell them something else. Well, forget that for a moment. What would you, quote, sell? What would you offer them? Well, for sure, I'd offer like a review session and, a refresher session. That would be good. They all 3 told me the same thing, a little bit differently. They said, then go ahead and do it and don't charge for it. And I said, what am I, all of a sudden, a philanthropy? And all 3 of them said the same thing, and again, in different ways. The day you put your client's interest and success ahead of your own goals is the day you're going to become a success.
Right.
And
Absolutely.
like, wow. So I went back, and I'd done such a bad job. I'm such a naive, know-it-all kid and cocky kid and all that. I'm a older, cocky, know-it-all person.
Yeah, there's some good things about getting older, that's for darn sure.
But we went back and I trained 600 people. I didn't have contact information on half of them. I never got it.
No.
So I sent out an invitation to 300 people, come to this session, a 2-hour session at the hotel, no charge. And I had the room all reserved, and they set it up for like 10 or 15 people. So it's about 10 minutes to 7 the evening of the event. And there's 2 people in the room. There's me and Anthony, my marketing guy. And I'm saying, well, we tried, it didn't work. And we both agreed this is pretty much the end of the trail. And all of a sudden, a couple showed up that attended one of my classes a couple of years before that. Very good. And then somebody else came. We couldn't start the session till about 7:25. 35 people showed up. We only had 15 sessions. We had to get the hotel kids and put the chairs in there. And I was so overwhelmed. I just, wow. And I did my little program, and I went through the whole program, gave them great value, and really they were very much engaged and everything. And at the end, I had to make my big confession, swallow the ego. And I said, listen, I told them the story. I was ready to fold up the tent and the, $150,000 in debt. I need your help. And I've never asked for that. And I was too proud to do that. And if you had value in this, would you be willing to not sell this, not collect a check, but just recommend me to somebody and give them my phone number? Well, the hands all went up. Of course we would. And, the 80-20 rule, out of the 35, that, 20% will probably follow through on that. And sure enough, next week I got 7 phone calls. Joe and Mary attended your program, and I'd like to have more information for it. And that was the springboard from it. And that was the other big lesson that I learned about time management. Going back to those 7 vital areas in life, if you want more of any of that in any one of those areas, give it away first. You want more love, give it away. You want more friends, be more friendly. Want more money, give it away. Give it away. No, not foolishly, okay?
Right.
But don't be so worried about the money. When I was in law practice, we had an opportunity to set up a pro bono bar to help indigent folks who couldn't afford an attorney. And they asked how many would be interested. And we had maybe 50 or 60 lawyers in the group one night. And 2 hands went up. And I said, yeah, I'll do it. And somebody else did. And at the end of that meeting, I don't know how many of my colleagues came up to me and said, what are you doing? Why do you volunteer for that kind of stuff? You're not going to get paid. They're probably difficult people. You'll get the tenant that's not paying rent. He's stiffing the land. Why would you do something like that? In disgust. And I said, I did it. I'm going to do it for 2 reasons. Number one is I'm privileged to have a license to practice law. And with that comes some obligation. People don't have the knowledge that we as attorneys have a right to counsel, okay? And number 2 is what goes around comes around.
Right.
And this wasn't my motivation, but many of these people that are the difficult people, okay, that's fine. But somewhere along the line, their circumstances change, and maybe there's they want to go into a business, or they buy a house, or they have a need, there was a car accident or something. And I never really kept much of a count on it, but I know it was well over $100,000 worth of business that came to me over the years, because I was just willing to get out. And that was not the motivation at all. And it just never fails. You want more of anything, you give it away.
Absolutely. Well, you are just have so much information and so much wisdom, and I just appreciate your time so very much. If people want to reach out to you and take one of your courses, how can they reach you?
They go to my website. It's balancetime.com. There's a ton of resources on there, and I think we got like 100 articles on there that you can kind of cut and paste. And there's also a stress test, which is kind of fun. You can take it, and it'll interpret your score and show you how screwed up you are.
Yeah, everybody wants to know how screwed up they are.
Yeah.
That's a good idea.
And it has my contact information on there, and some of the programs that we do. Or just pick up the phone and call me. My cell phone is 203-394-8216. I take all my calls. I don't have any screeners, and if I can give you a tip or two, or a word of encouragement, I'm more than happy to do it.
Oh my gosh, you are so amazing. Thank you so much.
I spend my day every day giving away the gift of time.
Yes, absolutely. Well, thank you. I really appreciate it. And yeah, I'll be in touch.
Thanks, Anna. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you. Okay, bye.